After sinking 100 hours into Enshrouded, I've worked out 15 advanced tips to make the most of your time playing the game. Now do make sure to use the timestamps below and stay to the end for a bonus tip that'll help you out in combat. And if you do have any other tips, please let me know in the comments below for others to read, because I'm sure they'll find it really beneficial. Now first off, by discovering new items in the game, you'll unlock the recipes they're related to. I really struggled to find goo right in the beginning because I hadn't created bug dust, though I had it unlocked as a recipe. I just didn't associate the two. So I highly recommend going through all of your craftsmen and producing one of everything just in case. But if you are struggling to find any of the flame upgrade resources, do check out my previous video. I'll put a link to it in the description below, where I go through where everything can be located. Now we all like jumping off of an arcane tower and shouting "squirrel," but have you ever squirreled it across a ravine to land on another mountainside, followed by promptly rolling off into lava or down the side of a mountain to your death? Yep, that sucks, but you can cancel various actions, such as squirreling early, by right-clicking as you're close to the floor. This is going to save you a lot, trust me. Now for some, it's fun to work their way through a deadly selection of traps, but sometimes it's just easier to skip them, whether that's jumping onto a ledge and walking around them, or working your way around the back of a base. Use the terrain to your advantage, and remember, you can dig your way through anything, you can fly over most things, or even break down the walls as I show you here, instead of trying to find the button. So we threw a few bombs at it and I was able to easily get the resources and skip the rest of the quest. For the first 20 hours or so, I'd only use wooden arrows as a ranger because they were the cheapest to produce and easiest to find the resources for. And then I'd only use the rarer arrows that I found for bosses, but the resources are so easy to come by in this game that it's a much better choice between an arrow doing 8 damage or one that does 21 damage for a few extra resources, because the amount of damage output increase is actually pretty considerable. It makes it well worth it. Spend some time preparing and you'll find it's a much easier experience for you. Now, did you realize it costs double the resources to create a lockpick on the go? Again, preparation is key, and though metal scraps aren't particularly rare, you'll find other items are more efficient to craft as well, such as flax. Using a spinning wheel rather than the hand spinner will actually produce double the amount of resources. So if there are particular resources or recipes that you're using a lot, try and check to see if there are better ways that you can be producing them. This one may be patched out quite quickly, but if my Skyrim days have taught me anything, it's that you can jump up any mountain if you find the right angle of attack. Sometimes you can jump and roll into it, or double jump. Doing this could save you a lot of time walking around the mountain and save you time exploring. Now there are also some really useful skills in this game. I highly recommend that everyone takes the double jump. It'll help you get out of harm's way, help with exploring as well. Another great option is the dessert stomach. It offers you an extra food slot, which can make a big difference when it comes to buffing your character, and something that we're going to talk about a little later. Another great one is updraft, as it allows you to explore and reach higher areas with ease. Now, if someone's playing solo, it can be really beneficial to take the resource gathering skills. If you're someone who likes to build, it's going to save you a lot of time. And if you're playing on a dedicated server, which I think is probably the best way to go with this, then it's best that each player chooses a dedicated role. Now, I highly recommend the tank taking Earth aura, as it'll reduce the damage by 10% to all players. It would actually be really interesting to see if this could be stacked with other players, as this would make it a no-brainer. Another fantastic one for co-op play is water aura, as this will give your team members free healing, and even more if you follow that up with the waters of life. Knowing that we'll have more skill tree options in the future though as the game develops is really exciting to me, and making me think about how cool it's going to be running our own community servers. And speaking of which, if you are looking at doing your own dedicated server, then make sure to check out low.ms. We're partnered with them and we do use them, and by using the code Totalxclipse and the link in the description, you'll get 20% off your first month, and you'll also be supporting the content I produce as well. But moving swiftly on, whilst exploring, I highly recommend taking altars, or at least the resources that you you need in order to produce them, because there are various biomes, certainly in the later levels, where you won't find stone in order to build them. So if you are wanting to use teleportation points, jumping back to base if necessary, then you're going to have to bring them with you. And now if you are going on particularly long trips and perhaps you don't want to be using altars for that, then it may be advantageous to take a campfire with you, because providing you're under a sheltered area, you can place the campfire down wherever you are and you'll get a short rested bonus. And speaking of the rested bonus, do maximize your comfort level at your main base. The rested bonus gives you a huge boost to stamina and stamina regeneration, and with a high enough level you can actually have an hour-long rested bonus, providing of course that you don't die while you're traveling, because that would just reset it and then you'd have to go back and rest again. Now, swords and staves can hit multiple enemies at once, but the same goes for the humble arrow if you are a ranger. If you're running low on ammunition and time it right, you can damage 2 or more enemies at once with a single arrow. Just funnel them together before releasing the bow. And speaking of maximizing your damage output, make sure you eat for the part. Don't rely on basic foods in the later game. Take time to cook hearty meals that give big buffs. You can see how I go from 60% range damage to over 90% with good food, whilst also buffing my health regen, my health, and stamina. Now, if you're planning on adding dirt roads in your future base, or farm soil for those farms, then make sure that you place a couple of blocks down of that resource, then use the rake to spread it out. You'll be surprised as to how far it will go, saving you a lot of resource hunting for that. And whilst we're on the subject of the rake, if you cannot find it for some reason, there's a bug at the moment. If you're over level 5, you won't be able to craft one if you haven't done that already. In which case you'll have to create another character, get the resources, which I think spring, twigs and stone, produce one, and then put that in the other server. For the time being, resources respawn quite frequently, but I hope we'll have the option to disable resource respawning soon to make the game more difficult, because on the whole it feels very easy. Make sure that you plot down where all the resources are on your map, because it will help you finding them later on. Speaking of resources respawning, you can actually force the game to reload the resources and items by closing the game and reopening it, or if you're on a server, stopping the server and restarting it. Now, this can be considered a bit of an exploit, but if you do so, you can cheese items by jumping in and out of the game. I don't recommend this, but if you did want to do that, you could place a flame altar nearby to a gold chest or a flame sanctum, and then you could just jump in and out and grab those resources, or keep re-rolling for better items. With it only just being released to early access, the game isn't the most optimized game that there is out there. So the enemy pathing isn't great. Now, this can create opportunities for you if you want to make it easier for yourself to cheese your enemies. Whether that's a stranded soldier or a boss, sometimes it's just easier to jump out of the way using double jump, and then cheese the enemies from afar. Now, if you have made it this far and learned something new, please do consider hitting the thumbs up and subscribing for more. But the last bonus tip is you can equip a weapon by right-clicking it and clicking equip. And in doing so, you can use Q to use it without needing to swap between weapons. It just quickly swaps it over for you. This saves you swapping weapons back and forth, allowing you to get a quick couple of shots in with a bow before returning to a sword and shield when the enemy gets close, saving your life by allowing you to get your shield up in time. I've found it really useful as a ranger. Now, thank you very much for watching. Why don't you check out my video next on building tips in Enshrouded? But we're going to leave it there. Special thanks does go to all of our amazing supporters on Patreon, most notably our Totalxclipse patrons, James Owen and Firefless, as well as our Lunars, the Calamity, Ben and Star, and our Blood Moon of the day, which today is the Viking Brit. Until next time, as always, ciao for now.